And to ask more of those questions that Kelly brings up there, I want to bring in Michael Crowley, diplomatic correspondent for the New York Times. Michael, the Bibas family has become a symbol of the horrors of October 7th. In part because Kfir was just 9 months old when he was kidnapped, the youngest of the hostages. But now we have this awful news about he and his brother Ariel's fate. How does this extremely emotional kind of development affect diplomatic talks to extend the ceasefire? Those talks were already tenuous.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And you're absolutely right. Absolutely heartbreaking story that is going to have real diplomatic consequences. It was going to be hard enough to extend this phase that Israel is in with Hamas, which is a pause in the fighting to allow for the release of hostages and the release of Palestinian prisoners. And this time period is supposed to be used for negotiations to try to establish a permanent ceasefire where you would have a long-term Israeli withdrawal and, hopefully basically say that this conflict is over. But of course, emotion is part of what's happening here and drives the politics around Prime Minister Netanyahu. And you can hear from his rhetoric the visceral outrage he's feeling, which I think is reflecting a sense in the Israeli population of just a kind of a fresh sense of horror, ripping open the wounds of October 7th. And to the extent that some or many Israelis may have felt like the campaign in Gaza had gone on long enough, had killed quite a lot of Palestinians, including many innocents, I think there's a new sense of outrage and indignation that's just going to make it a lot harder to reach that deal, a deal of any kind, never mind trying to solve the many sort of logistical problems that were going to make that hard to begin with.
So outrage and emotion swirling, but then there's also the role that President Trump plays, because the Trump administration has challenged Arab nations to come up with a plan that they like better for Gaza's future if they don't like the president's extremely outside the box and unorthodox idea for the U.S. to take over the Gaza Strip and displace the Palestinians there. Now it looks like those Arab nations are taking him up on that. They're trying to do it, with Saudi Arabia hosting Middle Eastern leaders for talks today ahead of a bigger summit in Cairo next month. Is that an encouraging development in your view?
Well, this is what the president said that he was trying to achieve, is to get the Arab leaders talking and to get a plan on the table. Although on the one hand, President Trump has talked about his plan for Gaza in very real specific terms, as though he really does intend to redevelop the Gaza Strip and make it possibly into some kind of a tourist destination or a real estate development. But his aides have kind of promoted a softer line on this, which is to say that the goal here is really just to get Arab states to come forward with a plan of their own to move this process forward. But that's something that's been happening for a while. If it was easy, the Biden administration, would have been able to pull it off, because the Biden administration really wanted a solution like this to this problem. Yes, the fact that the Arab states are talking is good, but they've been talking for a long time, and the problems are still enormous. Someone's got to pony up tens of billions of dollars to reconstruct Gaza. You have to figure out what you're going to do about Hamas. Are you going to get them out of there? What are you going to do about the Palestinian people who are in Gaza when you do the reconstruction? Is there anywhere you're going to move them to? Is that even legal? There's still so many questions that I just don't think we're anywhere near a breakthrough on this really difficult question.
Yeah, getting those talks to ensure action is extremely difficult. Michael Crowley, thank you for joining us.